Welcome to Next to Madison, a podcast to help you live your best life.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Next to Madison. On today's episode, I am sitting down with a former lawyer and a negotiation consultant, and we are talking about the subject of the power of negotiation. So many of us negotiate in our everyday lives without us even realizing it, but also when it comes to the negotiations you're aware of, like your salary at your job, or a deal you might be working on, we sometimes don't know how to properly approach those. And a lot of times we end up undervaluing ourselves. And I think it's important that people realize, like, when you're going into negotiation, that you kind of have, some basic facts and figures or just tips and tricks and whatnot to get your best rate and your best deal. So I am not the expert in this, and I need to learn myself. So with that being said, I'm going to bring on my guest on Next to Madison. Today with me is Janet Alexandersson. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. So let's just dive into this, right? Like, first question I want to ask you is, how does one determine their value?
That is really interesting. So I think you cannot really do that in a vacuum. It always has to be in relationship to, or in relation to, the person you're negotiating with, that you're looking to form a collaboration or a partnership or employee-employer relationship with.
Yeah,
So
okay.
it's relative to what they need and what they desire. So how do you merge those two? So yes, you can have your own value. You know what's moving the needle, but you have to figure out how the needle will move specifically for them. So it's always fluid. You don't have to say it's not a static value.
Yeah.
So how to do that is to just figure out, why do they need this? Why do they desire this that they want from you? And what is that solving for them? What do they not have to do or pay for if they have you? Or what are they gaining? Yeah.
Yeah, that's very well said. And I think that can help people prepare when they go into negotiation, that it's not about what you think you want and what you are trying to get out of the conversation, but really are your desires matching up with their desires?
That too. And often I think the value they put on you is much higher than you put on you.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, I've had things where people say, can you come help me, with this? You're so much more knowledgeable in this area than I am. What's your rate? And I usually say, I don't say that. I'd say, well, what are you willing to offer first? And then we'll go from there, because I don't want to overvalue myself and lose the deal, but I also don't want to undervalue myself and, shortchange myself.
Mm-hmm.
But let's take this off me and for the listeners that are there that could be, working in a job and they really feel that they need to be making more money, and they're preparing, and of course they're nervous and their palms are probably sweaty, but they're going to sit down with their boss and they're going to ask for a raise. What are some steps they can do to ensure that meeting goes successfully?
Yes, so they need to do some digging in the company and also like kind of suss out the terrain to what the boss wants from them that they're not delivering currently, or the things that they are delivering that wasn't part of the original deal. So Are they over delivering? Like, hey, I created this new program, we're about to step into it, I need to be compensated for this extra effort that wasn't in our original deal. Or if there is nothing you have done so far, is there a thing you could step into? And it doesn't mean that it has to suck up more of your time. It's just that your focus can slightly shift to match their new vision. So good timing for this is usually when you have like an annual, this is our vision for this year, these are our goals for these quarters coming up, and how can your pitch for a different container for your responsibilities fit into that? So then you have something to kind of have as a vehicle for why you're asking for money, and help them understand the value that you bring in that context, so that they feel like it's okay to compensate you, because that's going to lead to a higher return of investment for them as well.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And you always heard, like, when I first started my career, I was actually in finance. And the big thing was people would leave their jobs to get a raise. Yeah. So they would quit the company and get a raise. And sometimes the company would step up and beat the offer to keep them to stay. But that was it seemed like for me, it was like, that was the only way that they could really get a bump, was to cut bait and leave.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you need to be quite transparent when you start a job, but also during it, that I've found this ambition. I feel like this is a role I could step into. Is there room for that in this company? And then they also know that if they say no to that, you're probably going to look elsewhere, but give them the first shot. Then they're also going to respect that more and maybe compensate you in a way that you feel is adequate. And then they will also know that you're looking to grow. So once there are new opportunities, they might come to you. And this doesn't always mean taking on like higher positions with managing responsibilities. It's just like, what are you willing to like dive into and learn and share with the company?
No, that's very well said. Because I think, a lot of, people just, if you have that knowledge going into it, it's just going to be a much better conversation, so to say. But, it's interesting because I was just having this conversation with somebody about how employees have more power than they actually think. And we sometimes, like, if you're working at a company, because I've been there, and you're nervous to ask certain things of your boss, like, can I take this time off, or a raise with negotiation. And my friend told me, there was this girl I used to work with, and she got everything she wanted as far as money, time off. And I go, how did she do that? Was she, and I'm a comedian, so this is also can be a dirty podcast, was she sucking the boss's dick? First question asked, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, good for her. And she was like, no, not at all. She demanded it, and she got it. And I said, but so what's the fine line between demanding too much and getting because you could get your ass fired.
I think you need to sort of read the person. I once was at a job, so I can give you an example, where I was doing sales for a legal publishing house, and I was going to move into a funding the marketing department role instead.
Okay.
And their sort of base philosophy was that they don't negotiate salaries. You just keep what you had. So I went to the CEO and told them that my policy was that I negotiated my salary, and he fell for it. So it's more like you having the confidence of saying that I want to talk about this. This matters to me, and also bringing something to the table. So the first thing that I talked about was not my salary. It was, how can we build this thing that you need? So if you come with a proposal that is something they want, and then you tack the money after, they're going to listen, because they always want to hear a new proposal for how they can expand or build or grow their business. And then as part of that growth, they're going to have to pay you more. That's it. But also keep in mind, it's more expensive to rehire someone and train them than to like give you an increase.
No, that makes sense. Because that is kind of the thing too. It's like you do have more power than you think, but obviously don't be a pain in the ass. Be smart about it. But and that's kind of the number one rule of sales, no matter what you're in. When you're talking to somebody, if you're selling them something, that can improve their business or their life. That's why. Why am I going to buy something I don't feel adds value to my life? I'm just not, right? Yeah. So it's like the sale. And like for me, I'm in, work in entertainment and dealing with production companies and studios. And if I came in there and had a conversation of, what can you do for me, their cell phones wouldn't be in my note, and their numbers wouldn't be in my phone. But I come at it to where like, oh, this is something really cool that I think you guys would really latch onto, and you would be the appropriate partner. So it's like, you always have to come in with like, what can I do for you? And if that's the underlying tone, then you're going to get more respect and get what you want. It's always about what can you do for the other person. Yeah.
And that really works well when you're employed as well, but we think it only works when you're like representing your own entity, right? But it works just as well.
It absolutely does. So why do you think it's traditionally known that women have a harder time asking for money versus men?
I think in many ways, women are conditioned to not so much not ask, but to not demand. And asking feels like demanding.
Okay, interesting.
So a lot of women, when they are asked for what is your pricing, they do a revision in the head and start like, it's hard to say the number. So they do a discounted thing and say, it's usually this, but I'll offer it for 3,000 less without the client even asking, which is really common. And I think it's more that when we voice other requests that aren't about money in the workplace specifically, we're downplayed and saying like, that's not the thing, or like patted on the head. So we're patronized. So we're not like comfortable expressing this thing that is really important to us because we don't want to be patronized on this thing too.
Okay.
I think that kind of plays part of it, but also we're taught that you have to have power to make an ask. So in the game of negotiation, if you go to a business school or law school, it's like ask from a position of power, but as an employee or as a newbie business owner, you don't really have the power. So you feel like you should just ask something that they can feel comfortable with so that they can have the power. Because that's how you're used to relating to people. You allow them to still have the power by not asking what you really want money-wise. So it doesn't really ruffle any feathers.
Oh, yeah. So start ruffling feathers, ladies. We gotta demand what we want. Right?
That too, but also you might be doing them a disservice because if they don't place value on you, they're not going to place value on what you do. And then they might not get the full benefit of working with you. Because they're not going to pay attention.
Right. No, that makes sense. So right now, a lot of people, some people, because of the pandemic, have, made career changes and they've gone into other jobs. How do they know they're getting like the right rate? Like, how do you know when you're being undervalued? Like underpaid would be the word.
Yes. It almost always reflects in the relationship you have with people. So do they make a meeting with you a priority? Do they listen to your suggestions? Do they take your advice seriously? Do they make time for you if you need to quickly have a meeting with them? So if they have other relationships that they value more, that they have paid more for, that cost them more, they will put them above yours, right? Because it's worth more time, or it's worth more time waste or money wasted if they don't pay attention to them. So if you start noticing that they're not giving you the time of day that you should be having, or taking you seriously or your suggestions seriously, it probably means that you're also not being compensated in a way that demands that they take you seriously.
Oh, okay. So that's a good way to kind of gauge what your Okay, so let's say that you determine you're low on the priority list, your pay reflects it, their responses reflect it. How do you change it?
So this one of two ways. One of them is increasing your priority by making what you do a priority and then having that reflect back on you. So it's once again proposing something that catches their attention, that's going to have a high return on investment for them.
Okay.
Or if they refuse to give you value, it might be relationships that's never going to work out. So maybe they will never value you because they're used to you not having value. And then it's time for you to move on.
Okay, right. And that's when, if you're not feeling valued, no matter what you do, and even if you're making changes, then cut the ties, so to say. But this feels like it could also relate to relationships too. Like when you talk about the value, I mean, so business and relationships are like, they're kind of the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same.
Except for one, you keep your clothes on, one, you take your clothes off. But
preferably.
Yeah, right. But the value is interesting because you hear that a lot in relationships of why they don't work out. Like they didn't see my value.
True, but also if you look at it from your point of view, if you are being paid, if they're paying you low, are you going to prioritize them over people who are paying you more?
No,
so
I mean, my boyfriends don't pay me, but maybe
I meant professional
business model. Listen, I used to say in my stand-up comedy, I was like, I'm sick and tired of sucking dick for free. You know what I mean? Like, as a good Christian girl, love Jesus, but of course you give it up for free. And I'm like, we are the dumb ones. It's the hookers that are the smart ones. I always said that. I was like, I need value on this. This is ridiculous. What am I getting out of this?
Reciprocity.
Exactly, right? Don't suck dick for free. Well, as I say, there's no free lunch, so you can never, you know what I mean? So why do you think that traditional negotiations tend to fail?
I think they don't tend to fail everyone. I think they tend to fail specifically for people who don't have the upper hand already.
Okay.
So if they're set up to be a competition, which is also kind of weird because you don't want the same thing. So why are you competing? But also they're set up to favor the person that already has the power. And that could be social, political, economical power to kind of extract the value in the deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they want something, the other people are like fawning over the opportunity, and that's the dynamic we have modeled negotiations after for some reason. So they work really well for the traditional, I would say, accumulated wealth type of person.
Okay.
Because they have that clout and the money to make this work for them, and people are eager to be seen in their reflection. But for most people, it doesn't really work well because they don't have the power to enforce or like impose their idea of how the deal should go on someone else. So they need to look for other methods.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so that makes sense, right? So anytime you're going into negotiation, you're asking for more money, you're definitely in a powerless position.
Yeah.
So it's, you have to kind of create that power, and you do that through, as what I picked up on what you were saying, is before asking for money, show them your value or your added value that you would like to add before doing that.
Yeah, and also going back to the competition thing, like you really need to figure out what is it that they really want, not what they're telling you. That's one thing. Everyone says something, but what is it that really motivating them to do this deal? Is it because someone's been nagging them, or someone has been kind of making them feel something that they don't want to feel anymore? Or do they feel like they should expand somehow? Like the deal is one thing, but what kind of brought them to you? That's what you need to figure out and fulfill that role. So that's going to also increase your value and your power over the deal. Because if you can be this magic fairy that kind of makes it this magical thing that they had a problem with that they haven't even articulated be a part of the deal, that's great.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense, right? It's always adding value no matter what. I mean, you should be adding value to all your relationships. And if you feel they don't value you, then get out.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be guesswork. You can just ask them, like, if this deal was like 100% perfect for you, what would it look like in a year or in 3 months or when we're done, you know? Just ask them.
Oh, I like that. That's actually a good call, because then it'll get them thinking too, and kind of show that you actually really do care about what they're feeling and what their needs are.
Yeah.
And it's all about just having our needs met, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's
At
really,
the end, it's all.
so yeah, I think and the thing about life is we tend to just overcomplicate things. I know I do. And, it is nerve-wracking asking for money or trying to sell somebody something, but at the same time, like, just make sure whatever you're selling has value, is something that when you're approaching people, this is why they would want that, and really express that in the pitch.
Yeah, because that's also the most important thing. Well, closing the deal feels important now, but after the deal is closed, you're going to have to deliver on this thing. You're going to have to relate to these people. So make sure you can do that and make sure that they know that, and then you'll be compensated. It's very simple, but yet it's kind of elusive.
Yeah, it is simple now that you're like kind of putting this in, and I'm sure people listening will be like, oh yeah, this doesn't seem that hard, but I think people still get nervous. So if you're about to sit down with your boss, let's say, and ask for a raise, and it's the night before, and you're nervous, and you're coming up with all these stories in your head of how it could go and what they or he or she's gonna say, how do you kind of calm those nerves and help your confidence the night before?
I tend to look back at things that have been successes, and they don't have to be big. It could be like, hey, you kind of organized that really well, or you backed up these people, or you took something off their plate so they could have more time, or you spearheaded this new product really well. So like write down those things that you have done well and how that has translated into something of value for the company. It could be
Perfect.
tiny things. Like you just maybe save them a bit of money by switching some sort of supplier, or you have been dedicated for the past 2 months to work overtime with your team because you had to. Like, what is the thing you've done that has moved the needle for them a little bit?
Uh-huh.
And I tend to use this as a throughout. So this wouldn't only apply to the night before, but having a recognition document every time someone compliments you, gives you good feedback in your position, just put that in there so you have it when you need it. And then you can repeat those words to the people that matter, or even show them, like, this is what people keep telling me. Could I expand this thing so that I can do more of this that people seem to be needing within our company? So just like take stock of when people have appreciated your effort. And if you're in a company where people don't really appreciate your effort, when have they appreciated the outcome that has impacted them? So if you're in a praiseless company, there's still going to be things that they have said because they're going to talk about themselves and kind of steal your thunder, but you can still claim that because it was your part. You led up to that. You contributed to that. Don't steal it from them back, but just like, I love being part of the team effort and so on,
Okay, that makes sense. So, and how often should one ask for a raise?
Annually.
Just once a year?
Once a year, for sure. Like that should be like clockwork. You should revisit your salary annually.
Okay.
Anytime you are asked to take on extra responsibility that is significant enough for you to feel like it warrants a raise, definitely. If you change your job description anyway, officially, unofficially, right? Because they don't always put it in there, but they're asking you to do that. You should talk about money. So anytime your job is kind of rearranged, just make it a habit. And if they don't want to have the conversation, then you can say, okay, I'm going to put this on the list and we'll talk about it at our annual conversation, and just make that a habit for them.
No, that's a good call, because a lot of companies will do a raise, but if you look at some of these raises for these companies, it's like a joke. Like,
they're just like
2 to 3% raise. It's like, really?
Well, that's not even a raise because inflation, right? You're probably getting a loss.
Yeah, no shit, right? That's true. Like, could you beat inflation plus the 2 to 3%? Like, come on. Like, this is.
So we try.
But so I think that's when people really, especially now, because everybody's just trying to all these corporations are just trying to save money where they can. So it's important that you really, see what your value is and also have more options. And the thing is too, like with jobs, I always feel like if you're going to go in for a big negotiation, you should have your resume updated and already out there with headhunters looking at other companies, because when you don't need something, you have all the power.
Yes, that's why I was able to go in and say like my policies that I negotiated, because I secretly wanted to be fired, but that didn't happen. So like if you're in the position to not care, you're going to have a different approach, and to them it's going to seem confident. Even if you're just arrogant, it's going to seem like you're confident, and they want confident people who take charge in their companies most of the time.
Yeah, so exactly.
It works
right.
Really well.
I know, it's like when people are trying to like get fired, but not get fired for something bad, but like get let go. It's like, God, now they're keeping me on again. Constant thing. But all of us deserve to have an amazing life and be paid what we're worth, and be wealthy, or none of us deserve not to be if you're willing to put in the work. You gotta work for it, but you also can't short sell yourself. And I think a lot of people out there are just hitting the clock, cashing the paycheck, and then waiting for this word called retirement, which I am a huge believer in. If you're looking forward and counting down the days to your retirement, you fucked up. You work in the wrong job, right? And then I have friends that are like, oh, I hated this job. It took me away from my family for 3 weeks a month out of the year, but I made so much money. I'm 38 and I'm retired.
Yep.
So it's a catch-22. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things. But definitely don't undervalue yourself. I think I'm going to encourage everybody listening to this right now to go and ask for a raise. That's what I want to at least prepare for it, and write down the value you bring to your employer or to your clients if you have your own company, and go ask for it. I think
yes. And if you're afraid to put like a monetary value on it, ask for a benefit, ask for a perk, ask for something, because there's so many things that they could offer you that doesn't have to be hurting their bottom end as much, like So if it doesn't have to be money, it can just be perks, and they're usually worth more than money once you start looking at them.
And what kind of perks? Go elaborate a little more into that.
Can you get an extra vacation day? Could you get flexible work hours? Could you get more gear to work from? Could you get specific health bonuses that you need? Or could you get discounts, checks, access to people? Could you get their clout working for you? Could they give you a mentor? Like all of these things. Access to a network. Could they pay your membership for something that you want?
I like the activity thing, the gym thing.
Yes.
Because I think it's like you encourage your employees to be healthy, but if they're going to benefit you, like, hey, like if I, hit 10,000 steps a day for a month, will you pay for my gym membership?
Yep.
I mean, it could be something as crazy as that, right?
Yeah. Or you might not even have to like make it conditional. Could you, instead of giving me a raise when I'm performing this, because I need to have all my energy, pay for my gym membership? So I can like come to work energized, right?
Right. Exactly. That
or
is true.
relaxed. You can get massages.
Yeah. Or you're dry cleaning.
Yeah. Or food delivery. Could you give me a meal service? Because then I can do this. I can do the extra hours, or not even the extra hours. I can have my full attention at work.
Yes.
Because I'm getting nutritious meals and I'm getting time off when I'm off.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And that's the thing too, is a lot of people, when we talk about the power of negotiation, most people think money, and that's traditionally what it is. But also there's power of negotiation of your time.
Yep.
And some people feel like because I have friends that, they're always checking their work email, like they just can't turn it off. And I'm like, there has to be a balance. And I know I can do it sometimes too, but I don't look at my work email dreading things. I just look at it to be on top of things.
Yes.
Because when you have all, my friends will do, their selfies or scroll through Instagram. I really am like barely on Instagram. I go to like some informational pages, but I'm always on like, following the crypto markets and, seeing what's going on there. Like that's my new thing. So all my friends are like, are you just like cruising Instagram? I'm like, Instagram makes you dumb. No, I'm taking my financial future. But yeah, you do have to negotiate leave me the fuck alone at night.
Yep.
But sometimes you can't do that, because if you're hired by somebody, they expect you to do what you're told.
Yeah. Well, then that's when you go into like, I need my infrastructure. Then can you supply these things? Can I have a meal service? Can I have a laundry service? Can I have a maid service? So that I can be available. Like at least buy back some of the time, right?
Okay, well, let's go back to this. This is a great freaking point that I have never heard anyone say. If they're demanding more of your time, I'm repeating this because it hit home so much. If they are demanding more of your time and taking away from the things that you can't do anymore, like cleaning and your laundry, then you should ask for that. I never heard that before, but I'm like, what a great thing to ask for.
Yeah, because that's going to free up your time so you can actually have free time instead of like more chores to do.
Yeah. Wow, that's really great. And I don't think anyone listening to this has ever thought of that either. Wow, like if my boss wants me to work 2 more hours, well, then I'm going to ask if they can pay for a cleaning service to come, because that will free up that time so I don't feel overwhelmed, because now I've got to work 2 more hours and I still got to clean my place, or like the laundry. You know what I mean? That one I love. That one I really love. The maid service.
And it also makes sense for the company, because in most cases, when you pay someone's salary, you also have to pay some sort of taxes or some sort of other scheme, right? Yeah. But if you just pay for this service, that's just a write-off for them.
Wait, can they write off their housekeeping?
So if they were to pay you the money for you to pay for housekeeping, that's going to cost more than the money for housekeeping. You know what I mean? Because you're going to pay taxes, they're going to pay taxes. But if they just pay the housekeeping, there's no taxes.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Because it's work is more than just being at a place at a certain time and staying there and getting your work done. It's how's your home and personal life? Because that's going to impact how you show up to the office and how much energy you actually have.
Yep.
So that's good. You could even, I'm thinking about all these different things. You could even negotiate like a therapist to like,
Therapists, massages, anything that optimizes you to like be at your best for work, for sure.
oh my God, Botox, facials. I mean, the list could go on at this
Yep.
point,
You
right?
can
It would
go
be like
deep. You can go deep.
dog walking. Oh my God,
Uh-huh.
I would definitely do like a dog walker, you know,
Childcare for those that need that.
childcare.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think some of these big companies do offer that. And that's a big perk. If you're a working
Yep.
mom, like you're definitely going to take a job there versus one that doesn't, because that's very expensive.
Hmm.
And that's why, like, I have some friends who's, one of their spouses has basically stays at home because they just realized after taxes with their salary, like, it's going to cost them more with everything else. And so then they don't work. But the thing is, that person doesn't want to not work. So now you got this, like, I hate my life
Yeah.
situation. And so that's not good. Yeah, more companies should definitely do the childcare thing. I think that would be great. Even put it on site. I know
Hmm.
there's some companies that do it on site. You take your kid
Yep.
to work, you drop them off in the basement, or not the basement, but the first floor. Yeah, you tie them up in a cage. You leave them there, and when you clock out, they clock out. No,
Yep.
but that way you can go and like say hi to your kid. I don't know why
Hmm.
more companies don't do this. I mean, they really would have, especially as now that the majority of the workforce is women.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
It worked really well for them.
Yeah. So I know earlier we talked about why women have such a hard time asking for money. Why is it so easy for men to demand money?
I think it's part of the culture of how men are supposed to be seen, right? They're supposed to be the
The providers.
hunter. That too, but they're supposed to be pursuing things. So
Yes.
in the pursuit of things, you need to ask, you need to take initiative, you need to have a strategy, a goal. Like you have to have all these parameters in place, and that allows you to feel like I should ask, I should get this, I should. Whereas women are like the opposite of that. Maybe I shouldn't, because they're
Yeah.
not supposed to be traditionally pursuing and asking and taking initiative. So men are just, if you look at when men apply for a job, they tend to apply even if they meet like less than 50% of their criteria. Women apply if they meet like 90% or more.
Oh my God. Is that true?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because we disqualify ourselves immediately if we don't fulfill like the entire list. And men are like, I fulfill some of this, I'm just going to shoot my shot.
Why
And
do
they
you,
do the same with money.
how can we change that going forward for women?
I think we need to look at how we contribute once we're there. So we tend to think communally more
Mm-hmm.
in a way that is beneficial for a company compared to a man who's thinking about the pursuit, right? Because the pursuit is usually singular and your own, whereas we think communally and that benefits more people. So that's a selling point. So just looking at, yes, they have all these criteria, but what are they saying in the job ad? Are they saying something that they want in the job ad that you can fulfill? Maybe you shouldn't look so hard on the criteria, because the criteria is just some person there needing to list criteria because that's part of their job.
That is true. Okay,
Yeah.
so how would you apply or what would be your advice if, let's say, you really had a passion for a certain company? We could use anything from skincare. I'm just
Yeah.
thinking of shit I'm passionate about. Skincare, cryptocurrency,
Mm-hmm.
decentralization, anything taking power away from the government. But it hasn't been around that long. Let's take crypto, right? And you
Yeah.
want to go pursue a career in cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm.
But you go online and you see all these like crazy, must have this, must have this, must have this, and you don't. But you're like, I know once I get in there that I can do this because I do
Mm-hmm.
it for myself.
Yeah.
So how do you apply and at least get your ass in the room to communicate that?
You write the most amazing cover letter.
That's true.
Saying that. No, but you have to enunciate that you know your things, even if you don't have the credentials that are markers of success normally.
Mm-hmm.
But you have had this success. So tell the story of how you had a success thing. And if the cover letter won't let you expand enough, put that in a blog post or a video that you record and upload, and just like share, these are the results that I have. These are the data points that I achieved. This is what I know I can bring to you. It's always good to stand out. So if your application is like the outlier, and if it's the right fit for their company, they're still going to pay attention to you.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you're saying you could do a video too?
Yeah. Just record a video with everything you didn't have room to explain, because you could say in the cover letter, or like your approach to them, saying, I know I don't fit all the criteria, but I am getting the results that you want through my methods. Click this link and I'll share like a video. It's 10 minutes where I'm explaining more deeply, because I didn't want to overwhelm you with a bunch of text. And I also have these credentials.
Cover letter.
Yeah. And I also have these credentials that, yes, they're not the ones you're looking for, but they impact this job XYZ. Possibly. So that's allowing me to get the results that I want.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're just expanding their mind on what they think that people need to know, because they're just guessing, right?
You should
they're replacing someone.
You should write a book called How to Get What You Want. I don't even know if that's a title. But I never even thought, you're blowing my mind, because I've never even thought about all this shit. Yeah. And I am going to encourage everybody to listen to this episode that I can. Like, I mean, these are amazing things.
We're just so used to trying to follow the rules.
Yeah, we got to stop that.
Yeah, because there aren't any rules. They're just, see them as recommendations. When you see a job ad, like they're just recommendations for what they were ideally looking for or what they thought. And maybe you can offer them something better. And that should be your perspective, right? Can I give them a solution that works better than what they're looking for? Okay, can I back that up? Okay, show them. That's it.
Yeah.
At least take the shot, you know? Because if they jive with that, you have a great relationship going forward. You have something good there if they listen to you in that position.
Absolutely. Well, this has been amazing. So where can people contact you and find out more about what you do and how to get advice on a negotiation?
They can find me on LinkedIn with my name if they just want to connect. And my business is onyourterms.vip. They can just type that into a URL and they'll find more information.
Oh, that's great. Well, this has been awesome. I've learned so much, and there's so much more you can ask for if you just don't want to just ask for money, but ask for things that make your life easier.
Yes.
So you're not so overwhelmed and bombarded. And you know, that makes a big difference. And remember, in the long term, in the grand scheme of things, so to say, I can't even speak today. You don't get anything that you don't ask for.
So true.
You want it, you got to ask, because people aren't going to read your mind. And go after what you want, go get what you want, because we all deserve to be successful and amazing and have a great life. And if you're not feeling that way, well, go to the gym and then start negotiating your life. Get what you want. All right, Janet, thank you so much. And to everybody listening, wherever you're listening, I appreciate you. And we will see you next time to find out who's next.
Hey, your host here, Madison Malloy. Please make sure to subscribe to the show on all podcast platforms, and please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. Also, if you have any questions or comments, you can email us at contact@next2madison.com. I thank you again for listening. Bye.